Hello everybody, my name's Emma Foreman and I'm a consultant pharmacist at the Royal Marsden in London, and this is my colleague Sarah.
Hi, I'm Sarah Cavanagh. I'm the Deputy Director for Medicines Use and Safety, part of the Specialist Pharmacy Service.
And today we're going to be having a bit of a discussion and a reflection on the work we've done in global health in pharmacy. So Sarah, do you want to kick us off by telling us all about how you got started in global health?
Well, I guess quite early on in my career, I travelled before I went to university and enjoyed that, wanted to actually do something useful. So a year after I qualified, I asked my Chief Pharmacist at Worthing whether I could take a 3-month career break to go work in a street clinic in Calcutta. And he said yes. Thank you, Steve. And that was just fantastic. I came back, I stepped back into the basic grade rotation, finished my postgrad training, etc. But I always knew I wanted to go back and work for longer. So that was my first experience working post qualification overseas. And then a couple of years after that, I went off and did voluntary service overseas, as I believe you did, Emma.
I did indeed. So my global health journey started after I'd been a resident pharmacist at Northwick Park, actually, which was a really good preparation for being a VSO pharmacist, because when you're on call, you need to be able to think on your feet and be creative and be independent, as you do as a VSO. So I arrived in the late 90s in Asankwa in the western region of Ghana. And the first thing VSO do is they send you to go and visit a more experienced volunteer who's been in post for a while, who can give you some pointers on making your placement a success. So from the very southwest part of Ghana, they sent me all the way up to the north to visit this girl called Sarah Cavanagh, who'd been a VSO pharmacist for some time. And that's when we first met.
I remember it well, Emma. It was, yes, you'd had quite a long journey to get there, lots of buses and breakdowns.
Full of chickens and produce and people. I was like a little sardine on my way up.
So do you remember what we talked about when you came to visit and, you know, some of the things I was doing?
Yeah, so, well, the best thing that you gave me actually when I was there was a wooden counting triangle that your husband Malcolm had made, because he's a carpenter, and a copy of the Ghana National Formulary, because obviously as a good UK pharmacist, I'd arrived armed with the BNF, and then very quickly realised that I didn't have access to half the drugs that are in there. And some of the things that we did have, like Whitfield's ointment and chloramphenicol capsules, I didn't actually have any dosing instructions for in my trusty BNF at all.
No, those counting triangles were legendary. There were so many challenges though, weren't there, working in the pharmacy department where things are so different. I think one of the things I found the hardest to deal with really was the procurement, the fact that you didn't really know when you went to procure the drugs whether they would be available. The budget would sometimes be reduced by 25% the day before, and you were buying for full months at a time. And it was just impossible to predict what you were going to need, and you were just having to make these decisions. Did you find it
when you've got several hours journey to get to the place where you're going to be able to buy your drugs, and there's no opportunity to do a follow and get it delivered the next day? You really have to be organised and you have to prepare, and you may have patients in mind that you need to get something for, and it's awful if you can't find it anywhere really. And I just remember the huge big sort of gallon bottles of things like cough mixture and paracetamol suspension that I'd have to buy, and big drums full of ointments, and you'd have to dispense them out into like little separate camera case pots.
Yeah, I know. How are they dispensing now? We have digital photography. I was wondering about that the other day. No, I remember those gallon containers well, and actually that was my first sort of exposure to medication safety errors and patient safety generally, really, which is now my my proper grown-up job. Those gallon containers would come back, and there was one occasion when the label fell off. The dispenser used to write on the side of them CHQ for chloroquine or PMOL, etc., And there was one occasion I went to dispense, and they looked the same, didn't they? They were all sticky, pink, orangey liquids, but the paracetamol was really quite vivid pink, and the chloroquine was slightly more orangey. And I just thought, there's a labelling error here. I went home, and I just said to Malcolm, I don't know. I think the chloroquine's gone out instead of paracetamol. I was physically sick. I was so upset. I then went around all the wards. It was okay. In the end, that stock hadn't gone out. But then I just thought, right, this is an accident waiting to happen. So we revisited how we would stop that error happening in the future.
So it really shows how important it is to have good pharmacy practice set up within a hospital. And I think in the places where both of us were, we were the first pharmacists that they'd actually had there to train staff. And speaking of getting your first experience of something that you end up doing as your job later, I actually got my first experience of pharmacist-led clinics in Ghana, because I ended up taking over the national TB programme, dispensing the drugs for that, when the doctor that had set it up left. So I had my own little pharmacist-led TB clinic. And now that's what I do for a living. I do sort of chemotherapy review clinics. So driven by need, you set up these innovative services.
I think as well, I found throughout my career, we now prescribe, we do therapeutic substitutions at ward level, etc. I mean, we were doing this, weren't we, in Ghana in the 90s? You'd go on the ward round, and the doctor would say, this patient has this. What have you got that's going to treat it? And we would actually fill in the drug cardex, which is the drug chart, with basically what was available and most appropriate, if we could. And one of the hardest things I think I had to do was collect the drugs that we only got from the ministry. So things like the snake venom anti-sera. We had a tiny fridge, a solar-powered fridge, because we didn't have any electricity. We just had room for 10 vials of snake venom anti-sera and some insulin, and that was it. We go to the ministry and to collect our allocation, and sometimes they just said, sorry, you can only have 4 for this quarter, and it would be going into farming season, and then you're making decisions. You're called in because there's a snake bite, you've got 3 left, you're not going back to get more for another 2 months. What do? You have to make a judgment. Is this patient going to die anyway, in which case we should save it for somebody else? Was it definitely a viper? Did they bring the snake in? Do we know if we're even treating the right thing? It was hard. I was also asked if we could vial share, which I never did, because I thought we can't save somebody from a bite and then they get thrombophlebitis and die of sepsis. We didn't have any facilities for that, but it was really hard to get that message across sometimes.
It does give you a whole new perspective on things, doesn't it? Working in a resource limited setting and having to make the best decisions you can with what you've got. And it did take some adapting to, but I don't know about you, I found it even harder coming back and having to settle back into UK life, having relaxed into the Ghanaian way of life and getting used to this different way of working. How did you find the return home?
I knew it would be hard, because I found it almost impossible when I got back from Calcutta, that I really wanted to go back into medicines information. And I was so lucky, a job was advertised at Bristol Royal Infirmary, and someone took a chance on me. Thank you, Richard Cattell, if you're watching. So I was then able to get back in. But I did find it hard, because I just felt people didn't smile, people complained a lot. We've got so much. I remember the first time we went to the supermarket, I think we left with about 3 things. We didn't know what to buy. There was too much choice.
And I couldn't get over the hustle and bustle and the speed of sort of UK life as well. It took me a while to get used to again.
I think people complain a lot here. When our colleagues in Ghana were so, they just always seemed happier, even though they had less.
Yeah.
And every day I would go to work, and you would greet everybody. You'd go through all the wards on the way to the pharmacy, and you'd say, "Oh, good morning, Sarah. Good morning." And then at the end of the day, you'd say goodbye. People kind of come and go here, don't they?
Yeah.
And that doesn't bring you joy. it was a very cheerful place, even though sometimes dreadful things happened. So yeah, I agree with you. It was harder.
I have to say, sometimes when I'm feeling proper stressed out here, I do try and just get back in touch with my inner Ghanaian, chill out a bit more, spend some time talking to people, and just be more positive. So when I got back from Ghana, I had all these visions of full career in health development, and I was going to go off and join Médecins Sans Frontières. I was going to work for the Red Cross. But actually, when I looked, I couldn't really find any good opportunities for pharmacists working in health development, and ended up going back into oncology, which at the time I thought, oh, what am I doing? I'm never going to get back into global health now. But oncology was my second love. So off I went. And it's taken me really many years to get back into global health, but you did better. So how did you get back in?
Well, again, I was just really lucky. The whole Ghana experience, we were there for 3 years, never left me. But really, it was when I went to the East Anglia Medicines Information Centre, I had the opportunity to go to Mozambique. And they were responding to actually then the second WHO Global Challenge around hand hygiene, and they thought actually progressing from that to have a pharmacist on board, as we were talking patient safety, medication safety, was useful. So I jumped to that one, and that meant that I was able to continue working and just volunteer for a week each year for 2 or 3 years, and then as our volunteers are doing. So that was fantastic. And then from that we've kind of morphed into this project. So Emma, how have you ended up running the fellowships then?
Well, I believe I was on a train recently, and I got a telephone call from Blast from the Past, Sarah from VSO.
Absolutely. So we'd set these CPhOFellows projects up. The team, Vicky and Diane, etc., as you've already heard today, we'd got funding from HEE to run these fellowships, which was just such an opportunity, and I was going to do that half a day a week or something, and then something annoying came up health-wise, and I couldn't do it, and I just thought, we need somebody who. There has to be someone that can do this in my place. Who do I know? There needs to be somebody senior, someone who has global pharmacy experience, somebody whose boss is going to let them do it. I phoned you up and you said yes.
Yes, I think my first reaction was, oh, but I don't know anything about antimicrobial stewardship. And I certainly do now.
Indeed.
It goes to show that these connections and these contacts that you make when you do projects, they are beneficial in the future if you keep in touch with people. And, previous to Sarah getting in touch with the CwPAMS project, I'd actually been lucky enough to get involved with the Brighton-Lusaka link sort of skills sharing project, and been over to Zambia and made some contacts at the National Cancer Diseases Hospital, which is it's pretty much the Zambian version of the Royal Marsden, and I'm hoping to build on those links to do some more projects in the future. And having developed a career as a senior pharmacist in oncology pharmacy, I've also had the opportunity to work with ISOP, which is the International Society for Oncology Pharmacy Practitioners. So specialising hasn't actually stopped me from getting involved in global health, which is great. And I've started getting involved in some projects supporting pharmacists all over the world to build up their specialism in oncology, which is brilliant. So let's think about our fellows now. What would you like to say to them on their final graduation day?
Gosh. Well, I want to say, fellows, thank you. I was absolutely devastated when I had to pull out all the project trips last year and this year. But watching your journeys has really helped me. It's reminded me of all the fantastic opportunities I've had in my career to travel and work overseas. It's also been a constant reminder of how lucky we are to have the National Health Service. So just 2 suggestions for me. Seize opportunities with both hands when they arise, no question, even if you have to step outside your comfort zone. And secondly, please print your photographs. Print them out. Don't stick them in a cloud. Print them and put them in an album. Okay? And finally, Chief Pharmacists and others who've supported you, thank you. These individuals are exceptional. They are great ambassadors for your departments, your hospital, the NHS and the UK. And it was a really good call allowing them to do this, that you'll be reaping the benefits for decades. All right, I'll stop talking now. Emma, your top tips.
So well done, guys. This is your day. You've done brilliantly and you've actually put in so much hard work. I've been really impressed with the projects that you've done. My top tips would be keep in touch with each other and keep in touch with your partners from overseas. Hopefully it's the beginning of new friendships and you'll be able to work together in the future, and it will bring you opportunity, same as me and Sarah. Also, the skills that you have developed working on these projects, being creative, being flexible, really will benefit your careers going forward. So, you know, well done. You've done an amazing thing. You should be very, very proud. Okay, so I hope you like Sarah and I's outfits.
Oh, yes.
Ghanaian cloth. So we're going to wish you a very, very happy day and well done.